Hello, all you freedom-loving people. So what would it take for Canada to really become the 51st state, and who would really benefit? Meanwhile, DOGE was given the green light to cut regulations. Okay, let's get into it. On Wednesday night, President Trump signed a new presidential action titled Ensuring Lawful Governance and Implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Deregulatory Initiative. Elon Musk called this the biggest news of the day. This order authorized the DOGE team to focus on the deconstruction of the overbearing and burdensome administrative state. The head of a government agency has to, within 60 days, identify the classes of regulations, such as unconstitutional regulations or regulations exceeding the scope of the power vested in the federal government by the Constitution, regulations that are based on the unlawful delegation of legislative power, and regulations that impose significant costs upon private parties that are not outweighed by public benefits. And each government agency shall identify at least 10 existing regulations to be repealed unless prohibited by law. The order states, the ever-expanding morass of complicated federal regulation imposes massive costs on the lives of millions of Americans, creates substantial restraints on our economic growth and ability to build and innovate, and hampers our global competitiveness. Laws and regulations serve to regulate human behavior, but what can really change people's behavior is education, and the absolute best way is to improve people's moral philosophy. Every law and regulation has its positive effects, but it also has its negative effects, which people don't realize when they make laws. Excessive reliance on laws and regulations also restrict a person's freedom of action, just like keeping a person in a cage. President Trump made another major announcement on Thursday that he intends to personally inspect the U.S. gold reserves stored at Fort Knox. President Trump told Republican governors at a reception in Washington, I'm actually going on this one. All my life I've heard about Fort Knox. That's where the gold is kept. We're getting a little bit shaky. We're getting the yips on this stuff. Like, I want to find out. We're going to open up the doors. I'm going to see if we have gold there. Did anybody steal the gold in Fort Knox? There's been a lot of speculation these past few days about the safety of our gold reserves. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has tried to calm these fears, though. In a recent interview, Bessent claimed, I can tell the American people on camera right now, there was a report on September 30th, 2024, all the gold is there. Any U.S. senator who wants to come and visit it can arrange a visit through our office. And besides wanting to tour the vaults at Fort Knox, President Trump has recently expressed his desire for the federal government to take over the governance of Washington, D.C.
I think that we should govern District of Columbia. It's so important, the D.C. situation. I think that we should run it strong, run it with law and order, make it absolutely flawlessly beautiful. And I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe. People are getting killed, people are being hurt. You have a great police department there, but somehow they're not utilized properly. We should govern D.C. I think the federal government should take over the governance of D.C. and run it really, really properly. And I like the mayor. I get along great with the mayor. But they're not doing the job. Too much crime, too much graffiti, too many tents on the lawns of these magnificent lawns, and there's tents. And, you know, it's a sad thing. You know, homeless people all over the place, and we got to take care of the homeless. But you can't have that in Washington, D.C. You know, when they come over to see me, like Macron is coming, and the Prime Minister of UK is coming, and all these people are coming over to see me, we'll have ultimately President Xi, and we'll have everybody coming, right? And you can't let that be. You just can't let that happen. You can't have tents all over your beautiful, your once magnificent plazas and lawns and all. You just can't do it.
Today, Manhattan U.S. Judge Dale Ho vacated the upcoming trial for New York City Mayor Eric Adams, but the judge declined to dismiss the charges against Adams for now. He appointed Paul Clement, an outside lawyer, to serve as a friend of the court to present arguments in the case against Adams. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced on Thursday afternoon that she has decided not to remove the New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office, but to leave the choice to the voters.
I consulted them and legal advisors on whether it's appropriate and necessary at this moment to exercise the power granted to me as the governor of the state of New York by the New York State Constitution and the City of New York Charter to remove a mayor from office. I've also heard from many voices of New Yorkers who feel outraged, who feel hurt, betrayed by what they have seen. And I want those New Yorkers to know I understand those feelings as well. After careful consideration, I have determined that I will not commence removal proceedings at this time.
Governor Hochul said, "My strong belief is that the will of the voters and the supremacy and sanctity of democratic elections preclude me from any other action. I cannot deny the people of this great city the power to make this decision for themselves." The governor said that the decision came not from any pressure, but from her careful consideration. The governor said that if the recall process is initiated now, it will bring more chaos and instability to the city and affect the normal life of its citizens. Moreover, the length of the process will also affect the operations of the entire city government. It may even lead to the rotation of several mayors in a year, which is not favorable to New York City. Nevertheless, Hochul said that she would be implementing a range of measures intended to limit his executive authority. Her specific plans are to, number one, appoint a special inspector general to oversee the mayor. Number two, make arrangements for the city comptroller, the public interest defender, and the speaker of the New York City Council to have independent authority to take possible legal action against the federal government without having to rely on the mayor's office. And number three, expand the state comptroller's oversight of New York City's oversight function to closely evaluate decisions related to the federal government. Hochul also said that her primary goal is to stabilize the city and restore order. And in order to ensure that, city leaders must act only in the best interest of New York City and not be influenced by the Trump administration. But the city of New York, on the other hand, says that the position of supervisor adds to the bureaucracy, and New York City does not want to add any more red tape. Nikola, the electric vehicle company that was once considered Tesla's strongest challenger, has formally filed for bankruptcy in the United States. Nikola plans to gradually shut down its operations. Its spectacular market crash is another warning about the perils of industrial policy and chasing government subsidies. From its establishment in 2014, Nikola was aiming to challenge Tesla. That's why it chose that name, and together with Tesla, it paid homage to the legendary American inventor Nikola Tesla, signaling its ambition to equal Tesla in the U.S. electric vehicle market. At first, it did show signs of challenging Tesla. At one point, Nikola was seen as the future of the electric vehicle industry. In 2020, Nikola went public on the NASDAQ. The stock doubled in just 3 days. Although Nikola had not yet sold a vehicle, its market valuation had reached $30 billion, which was greater than Ford at the time. However, in just a few years, this star company that once stood at the peak fell from the altar and eventually went bankrupt. In fact, the company was shrouded in scandal for several years. In September of 2020, the company was shooting a Nikola One commercial that was widely noticed by the public and investors for a doctored YouTube promotion. The video, first posted by Nikola on Twitter in January of 2018, showed its truck model traveling effortlessly on a flat road. The caption on the video read, "The Nikola hydrogen electric truck will take on any semi-truck and outperform them in every category: weight, acceleration, stopping, safety, and features, all with 500 to 1,000-mile range." This was a revolutionary technological advancement. Unfortunately, it was not true. In reality, the truck just slides down the ramp, moving the help of gravity rather than being driven under its own power. During this time, the doors were taped shut to prevent them from falling off, and the battery was removed to prevent the truck from catching fire. In the early days of the company, its founder, Trevor Milton, made bold promises to the market. However, he was eventually convicted of securities fraud for misleading investors and exaggerating zero emissions technology in 2022. Nikola delivered its first vehicles in December of 2021. However, a series of fires in its electric trucks in 2023 led to the company having to recall 209 battery electric trucks. As of last October, it had sold fewer than 500 trucks at a heavy loss. Nikola's hydrogen truck is reportedly priced at $351,000, which is about half the cost of production, but it's twice as expensive as an internal combustion semi-truck. So it's understandable why the $40,000 tax credit offered by California regulators and the Biden administration to purchasers of electric trucks has failed to incentivize truck drivers to opt for electric trucks. On Wednesday, Nikola CEO Stephen Gursky said, like other companies in the electric vehicle industry, we have faced various market and macroeconomic factors that have impacted our ability to operate. Translated into easy-to-understand everyday language, this statement means that high costs and technical limitations make electric vehicles unsuitable for long-distance trucking. Last year, the company produced 80 trucks, but the loss amounted to $200 million. Of course, Nikola is not the only electric vehicle company facing difficulties. The Wall Street Journal reported another electric truck maker, Lordstown Motors, filed for bankruptcy in 2023. Fisker Incorporated failed last June. The British electric bus startup Arrival sold its assets to another EV startup, Canoo Incorporated, which filed for bankruptcy last month. The Biden Energy Department provided a $6 billion rescue for Rivian Automotive after it lost $107,000 for each vehicle it sold during the first 9 months of last year. Canada and the U.S. played for the Four Nations Face-Off Championship on Thursday evening. Before the game, President Trump invited Governor Trudeau to watch the game with him, while again suggesting that Canada should become the 51st state. President Trump wrote, "I'll be calling our great American hockey team this morning to spur them on toward victory tonight against Canada, which, with far lower taxes and much stronger security, will someday, maybe soon, become our cherished and very important 51st state." President Trump added, "But we will all be watching, and if Governor Trudeau would like to join us, he would be most welcome." And President Trump did call the American hockey team.
Well, I'll talk to the guys if they're around.
Yeah, they are. I'm going to walk into the locker room right now, and you can speak to the guys firsthand. Mr. President, can you hear me?
I can. You guys are really talented. I have great respect for hockey players. I'm a hockey fan. I love hockey. The talent, the skill that you have is crazy. And just go out and have a good time tonight. And I just want to wish you a lot of luck. You really are a skilled group of people. It's an honor to talk to you and get out there, and there's no pressure whatsoever.
I can tell you honestly, every person in here, players, staff, management, coaches, we are all proud Americans, and we want to represent our country the best way we can and do our best to bring in a win tonight. Thank you again on behalf of everybody.
You just go out and have a good time. You're going to win, and we love America, and we love you guys. We'll be watching tonight. Bring it on.
Thank you.
The U.S. hockey team defeated Canada on Saturday night 3-1 in their first matchup. Then, before the Four Nations Face-Off final game last night, Canadians started booing because of President Trump's post. Team USA coach Bill Guerin said, "I think that there was a little bit of political flair to it." Someone on X joked that President Trump should penalize Canada by increasing the tariffs. He wrote, "Canadians are now booing our national anthem every chance they get. Mr. President, you have our permission to increase the tariffs to 50%. But last night, Canada ended up defeating the U.S. team in overtime with Connor McDavid, the world's best hockey player, scoring the winning goal. President Trump has recently expressed his desire for Canada to become the 51st state of the United States. If this were to happen, the connected 48 states would be expanded to become the connected 50 states. Canada would be sandwiched between the 48 states and Alaska, making 50 connected states, while Hawaii would become the only non-connected state. President Trump has insisted that he is 100% certain that Canada will join the United States. In response to President Trump's comments, Canada initially reacted in a lukewarm manner. However, Trudeau is beginning to realize that President Trump's push to annex Canada is not a joke, it's a reality. So what's the procedure for annexing new states to the United States? Under the U.S. Constitution, congressional approval is required for the admission of new states. In the House of Representatives, a simple majority is all that is required, but Senate rules require at least 60 votes in the 100-member chamber to bring a bill to a vote. Under normal circumstances, even if the bill is passed by Congress, the president's signature is required for it to take effect. In case of Canada, of course, once Congress passed the bill, President Trump would not refuse to sign it. So does Canada have a right to decide in any of this? In theory, joining the U.S. does not necessarily require a referendum vote by Canadian residents. Historically, however, the process of admission of most new states to the U.S. has been initiated by local legislatures submitting petitions to Congress. In other words, local residents apply first, and the U.S. Congress votes on whether or not to authorize it. For example, the Texas Republic asked to be admitted to the Union several times, and Congress initially refused, but later it agreed to accept Texas as the 28th state of the United States. So President Trump's initiative to make Canada the 51st state of the United States is tantamount to setting a historical precedent. Nothing like this has ever happened before, but it is likely that Canada would hold a referendum in order to assess the public's willingness to join the United States. Only then would the more specific legislative process take place. If Canadians are generally opposed, it may be difficult to move the process forward. Obviously, it's unlikely that President Trump would choose to annex Canada by force. And that is because there would be too many unimaginable ramifications, and it would be out of character for President Trump. And Canada's entry into the U.S. would have a huge impact on the U.S. electoral landscape. It is much more than just Canadian voters favor Republicans or Democrats. According to the 2020 census, Canada's population is 41.6 million. It would become the most populous state, surpassing California, which currently has a population of 39.4 million. And based on the average number of people per parliamentary constituency, Canada would gain 2 Senate and 55 House of Representatives seats. This would make Canada the state with the most electoral votes in the presidential race, totaling 57 electoral votes over California's 54. And the U.S. Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929 fixed the number of seats in the House of Representatives at 435, which cannot be increased. If 55 seats were allocated to Canada, the number of representatives from other states would be forced to shrink, which would directly reduce the influence of some states in the Electoral College. This means that traditional swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin will no longer be the most important battleground states, and tens of millions of Canadian voters will become the new vote bank for candidates. We have seen in past elections that public opinion in battleground states is a top concern for all presidential candidates. From this point of view, Canada's integration into the United States would most likely do no harm to the Canadian people. The voices of the Canadian people would be at the forefront of the minds of future U.S. presidents, and the U.S. would gain some great hockey players. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you. But please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.